Part 1. Letting go of what you cannot control. There is something that quietly erodes you even more than failure, and that is worrying about things you cannot control. I once heard the story of Emily, a 25-year-old American girl who had just graduated and was applying for jobs everywhere. She applied to over 30 companies, wrote cover letters so long her hands ached, meticulously edited her portfolio down to every period. Yet no one responded. 1 week, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks. Emily started losing sleep, doubting herself, asking, am I good enough? Am I valuable? Or am I just a failure? In her mind, the voice of self-blame echoed day and night, making her heart race, leaving her so restless she couldn't even eat. Everything fell into a loop. Refresh email, see nothing, fear, self-blame, refresh email again. An endless loop. But then, on a tearful evening, she suddenly remembered something her philosophy professor once shared. You can't control the wind, you can only adjust your sails. Emily woke up. She realized she couldn't force the companies to reply faster, nor could she control what recruiters thought. The only thing she could control was her own preparation, her own skills, and her own patience. From then on, she started sleeping better, eating properly, and spending time learning new skills instead of just waiting for an email. A month later, a small but promising startup called her in for an interview, and Emily landed her dream job. Not because she controlled the world, but because she controlled herself. The ancient Romans had a wonderful mantra: if it depends on you, act. If not, release. Each time you feel stressed, ask yourself, is this within my hands? If not, stop poisoning your own spirit any further. A little humor. If a recruiter doesn't reply to your email, they're the ones missing the chance to have you, not you losing your value. Smile and remind yourself, I drop it. I can't control this. Like gently dropping a stone from your pocket, you will feel your heart lighten greatly. Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. Only when you stop trying to control what is not yours to control can you have the strength to focus on what you can change. And that is where true power begins. Part 2. Practice acceptance every day. We often confuse acceptance with surrender. But Stoicism makes it very clear. Acceptance is a form of strength. It is like a shield that protects you in a world full of variables and uncertainty. I remember the story of Ryan, an American friend who was about to marry his Vietnamese wife. After months of preparation, planning the wedding, booking tickets, renting a venue, Ryan excitedly filed the paperwork to bring her to the U.S. But then the pandemic hit. The immigration system froze, papers were left in limbo, and no one could say when they might be processed. At first, Ryan was going crazy. He kept calling, sending dozens of emails to USCIS, trying to force the process to move faster. But it was useless. Every morning he woke up with a rock in his chest, angry, desperate, and pained by longing. He lost sleep, lost weight, and his mind was in chaos. But then one night in the depths of despair, he came across a quote from Epictetus. If you wish for things to go as you desire, you will be disappointed. Wish for things to go as they do, and you will find peace. That quote felt like a reset button. Ryan realized he could not control the machinery of the government's immigration system, nor could he control the pandemic. The only thing he could control was his attitude and actions today. He began to focus on preparing the house, learning more Vietnamese to welcome his wife, planning the honeymoon menu, and taking care of his health. He still missed his fiancée deeply, but no longer tormented himself over things beyond his reach. A little humor. The American paperwork system can be as slow as a turtle, but worrying won't make it move any faster. Ryan just laughed and waited patiently. Finally, after 9 months, the visa was approved and the wedding took place warmly. When he looked back, Ryan said, that moment of acceptance saved our marriage. Stoicism calls this the ability to bend with reality instead of smashing your head against the wall. You don't have to like everything that happens, but you can choose not to resist it pointlessly. Every morning, remind yourself, I accept this present moment so I don't lose my peace. Acceptance does not mean weakness. It means you are wise enough not to fight a battle you cannot win. A mantra to remember, acceptance is not surrender. It's strategy. Try applying it today. because reality is already unpredictable enough. You don't need to make it worse by struggling in vain. When you practice acceptance, you will be clear-headed enough to maneuver, and your heart will be light enough to continue to love, hope, and live fully. Part 3. Face your fear so it shrinks. Have you ever noticed? Fear tends to grow monstrously when you keep avoiding it, but becomes tiny if you are brave enough to look it straight in the eye. In the US, I know a girl named Lily working in digital marketing at a fairly high-pressure startup. Good salary, talented colleagues, but Lily lived in constant fear of being fired. Anytime her boss called, "Can we talk?" her heart would pound, her palms would sweat, and she would instantly imagine herself losing her job, losing her home, wandering the streets, even though she had never once been warned. One day, after being so stressed that she lost sleep for several nights, Lily decided to do something stoically crazy, deliberately walk straight into her own fear. She gave herself a minimalist month with a budget of $500, cutting out all Starbucks, canceling Netflix, even sharing a room with a friend to save rent. The goal? To see if she could actually survive if she truly lost her job. And the unexpected result? Lily still survived. She learned to cook, borrowed books from the library, discovered she could enjoy a free picnic in the park instead of a fancy restaurant. After 30 days, she realized, yeah, if I really lose my job, I can still manage. I won't die. It was precisely then that the fear of losing her job shrank, because she had already experienced the worst and knew it wouldn't kill her. Stoics call this voluntary discomfort, deliberately familiarizing yourself with hardship so you are immune before true adversity strikes. Humorously speaking, trying to give up a $6 latte every morning is harder than meditation, but you should try it at least once to see that you are much stronger than your fear. Seneca, one of the most famous Stoic teachers, used to wear ragged clothes, eat hard bread, and sleep on the floor for a few days each month, even though he was fabulously wealthy. Why? So that if wealth was taken away, he could still hold his head high and move forward. When you dare to face your fear, you strip it bare, shine a light on it, and realize most of it is just an illusion. Like Lily proved, before you let fear control you, give it a chance to reveal its true face, and then you will see how laughably small it is. So next time you tremble at a catastrophic scenario in your head, ask yourself, how truly terrifying is the worst case? And if possible, try to touch it first, just like testing the cold water before jumping into the lake. A classic Stoic mantra, fear shrinks when you face it. You don't have to live in fear like a slave. You can learn to face it, get used to it, and turn it into a warning friend, instead of a monster that manipulates you. That is when you are truly free. Part 4. Walking to calm the mind. There is a cheap medicine you can find anywhere in America, from New York Avenue to a small street in Kansas, that is walking. Sounds naive, but don't underestimate its power. I remember an American couple, Jim and Karen, who both worked in tech, stuck to their screens all day, stress piling up, quick to anger. One time, they had a huge argument just because they forgot to take out the trash. Karen was so angry she screamed. Jim slammed the door and stormed out. But instead of driving off, Jim turned back, took a deep breath and said, "Walk with me." The two of them walked in silence around the block. At first, they were still angry, still resentful, but then each steady step slowed their heart rate, made breathing easier. 10 minutes later, they began to talk and realized the argument was really just the accumulation of exhaustion after stressful deadlines. A small matter, thanks to walking, did not turn into a tragedy. Stoicism has pointed this out for a long time. The body and mind are one unified block. When you just sit still, letting your thoughts spiral, all your worries only get more tangled. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The mind needs movement to breathe." Walking is the cheapest, easiest way to let your thoughts and your breath flow freely again. A bit of humor. Many people are willing to pay for sleeping pills or anxiety meds, but reluctant to take a few laps around the house. When just 15 minutes of walking can calm the brain, reduce cortisol, activate endorphins, and return you your clear reasoning. Stoicism has a wonderful Latin phrase, solvitur ambulando. It is solved by walking. A problem that feels deadlocked, an argument that feels collapsed, can often be untangled just by changing the environment, changing your breathing rhythm. Walking does not erase the problem, but it changes how you approach the problem. Next time you feel overwhelmed, inbox exploding, kids crying, spouse complaining, or boss chasing deadlines, don't stay frozen trying to think harder. Stand up, walk around the block or to the park, or simply circle the yard. One step, one breath, one peaceful pause. And then, when you come back, you will feel at least half as heavy, clear-headed enough not to say harsh words, calm enough to handle difficult tasks, and wise enough to see things may not be as bad as they seemed. Walk it off, literally. Truly walk, to shake off the anger and fear. A good pair of shoes, a quiet path, could be the savior that helps you avoid regrettable mistakes. Because sometimes the answer is not in your head, but in your feet. Part 5. Prepare for the worst. It may sound a bit negative, but in fact it is a kind of courage, practicing to welcome the worst. The Romans called it premeditatio malorum, premeditating adversity, so that when it actually comes, you don't collapse. I remember an American friend named James, an engineer in Chicago, extremely meticulous and a bit of a worrier. One time, he booked a plane ticket back home to attend his sister's wedding. Ticket ready, suit pressed, wedding gift prepared. But the day before flying, a snowstorm hit. The flight was delayed indefinitely. Luggage lost. James panicked, thinking everything was ruined. But thanks to listening to a Stoic podcast beforehand, he had practiced premeditatio malorum, picturing in advance if he was delayed, if his luggage was lost, if he couldn't arrive on time, and what he would do. That preparation made James less shocked. He immediately rented a car, drove across states, bought a cheap suit at a discount store, and still made it to the wedding, even if a bit late. James later shared, "If I hadn't run through the worst-case scenario, I would have collapsed in the airport." And that is precisely why Stoicism encourages you to imagine the disadvantages beforehand, not to scare yourself, but to build inner resilience. A little humor. Many people carefully prepare spare batteries for their TV remote, but don't prepare at all for the shock if their lover suddenly breaks up. And then they shatter like a glass dropped on the floor. You don't have to live in anxiety all day, but you can gently ask yourself, if the worst happens, can I handle it? Do I have a plan? Visualizing the worst helps you stay calm, and if you're lucky it doesn't happen, you'll feel everything light as a surprise gift. Marcus Aurelius once reminded, "A blow expected hurts less." When you live with a prepared mindset, nothing can completely knock you down. Next time, before an interview, before signing a contract, before investing, spend 5 minutes imagining, what could break, and what would I do then? Those 5 minutes might save you from panic later on. Stoicism does not teach you to be pessimistic, but to be resilient. When you prepare for failure, you do not invite it, but you also won't be paralyzed by it. Remember, plan for the worst, hope for the best. Because like James, if you already have plan B, C, D, you will never be so surprised that you lose yourself. Part 6. Seek help. A common misunderstanding about Stoicism is Stoics have to endure alone, have to be as hard as stone, never weak. But in fact, Stoic philosophy never forces you to be alone. It only encourages you to master your emotions, not to forbid you from seeking help. Look at the story of Ben, an engineer in Austin, Texas. Ben had always been proud of his independence. But when his mother fell ill, while a project at work was tight as a guitar string, Ben nearly collapsed. Every night he came home, he couldn't sleep, his mind spinning, worrying about hospital bills and the family's future. He kept gritting his teeth, telling himself, "I'm a man, I must be strong." Until one day while driving home, Ben collapsed by the roadside from exhaustion and panic. The doctor said Ben was suffering from severe burnout and advised him to see a therapist. At first, Ben resisted, thinking that a stoic man shouldn't need to share. But then he remembered Marcus Aurelius, the legendary Stoic emperor, who also kept a journal as a way of self-talk and self-healing, who also relied on trusted advisors to get through crises. Ben thought, if Marcus still needed companions, why should he be alone? He decided to join a support group with people who had been through the same and also see a therapist to talk through his deepest fears. Miraculously, after just a few sessions, Ben felt lighter, could breathe easier, and began to rearrange his plan to care for his mother without being suffocated by worry. Stoicism emphasizes self-mastery does not mean isolation. Marcus Aurelius had a saying, "What injures the hive injures the bee." We are part of a community. No one goes through this journey alone. Humorously speaking, if you can hire a coach for your gym muscles, why hesitate to hire someone to train your mind? A therapist, a mentor, a close friend, all can be precious allies. So next time when you feel stress closing in, don't be afraid to speak up. Pick up the phone, send a message, or sit down with someone you trust. A single sharing can sometimes save you from months of self-torment. Remember, ask for help. That's wisdom, not weakness. Stoics truly understand strength does not mean you never fall, but that you know how to stand back up and know when to find a helping hand. Part 7. Let go to move on. Have you ever realized that much of our suffering does not come from events themselves, but from how we cling to them? I remember an American friend named Anna who broke up after a 7-year relationship. Her ex left without a word of apology, leaving Anna with an empty apartment and a shattered heart. Anna suffered for months, lost sleep, stopped eating, and didn't even dare step into the cafe where they used to date. One time, friends took Anna on a camping trip, sitting around a campfire. They advised her to let go. He's gone. Why are you holding on to his pain to torture yourself? At first, Anna was angry, thinking they didn't understand, but that night, she thought long and hard. She realized, indeed, he had left, but she was the one holding on to the wound, refusing to set it down. Stoicism teaches us a profound lesson. It's not the event, but your attachment to it, that prolongs suffering. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." The next day, Anna allowed herself one last honest cry, then got up to clean the apartment, throw away old memories, repaint the living room, and write on paper, "I don't have to keep suffering because of the past." She started exercising, meeting new friends, finding small joys in taking care of a new cactus she bought. Step by step, Anna gradually found her breath of peace again. A little humor. Clinging to a painful memory is like holding on to a burning coal. The tighter you hold, the more it burns you, while others feel no pain far for you. Letting go does not mean denying the pain, but means refusing to let it control your life for one more day. Stoicism does not tell you to forget everything, but reminds you, what happened, let it stay in the past. A very memorable quote, "Let go or be dragged." Each time you feel tormented by something that is past, ask yourself, does this help me move forward? If not, learn to put it down like you would put down an unnecessary piece of luggage, so the journey ahead is lighter. Tomorrow will still come, no matter if you sit there regretting. And you cannot welcome new opportunities if your hands are still clinging to an old ghost. Letting go is not only about forgiving others, but also about forgiving yourself, to be free. Part 8. Love your fate. Amor fati. If there is one thing that makes Stoicism most different from other philosophies, it is amor fati. Love your fate. It may sound impossible. How can you love loss, failure, suffering? But precisely because of that, amor fati is extraordinary. I remember the story of Thomas, an American friend who worked in sales in Denver. He had a 6-figure income, a beautiful house, a luxury car, everything seemed solid. But then the company restructured, and Thomas was suddenly laid off. In one night, everything collapsed. Thomas broke down, thinking he had lost it all, blaming himself, spending months afraid to face anyone. One day, while cleaning up a pile of old books, he accidentally saw a quote from Epictetus. "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, and you will be happy." Thomas was stunned. He asked himself, what if losing this job is actually a disguised gift? Putting that into action, Thomas tried applying to small companies where he had never dared before, where human value was respected more than just sales numbers. 3 months later, Thomas became the sales director of a green startup, regained his motivation and confidence, and even had more time with his wife and children. That is amor fati, welcoming both misfortune and opportunity, seeing them as raw materials to forge yourself instead of resenting them. Stoicism does not ask you to applaud suffering, but teaches you to use it, turn it into strength. A bit of humor. If life throws you a lemon, don't just complain about its sourness. Squeeze it into a refreshing lemonade. You will see that any failure can become a stepping stone if you choose to look at it with a learning instead of a bitter eye. Marcus Aurelius once compared a strong person to a great fire. Everything thrown into it becomes fuel. That means when you love even adversity, it will nourish you instead of burning you. Try to remind yourself, amor fati, I don't need everything to be easy. I just need the courage to welcome it. One day when you look back, you will be grateful even for the stumbles, because they helped you grow, become more resilient, and wiser. Loving your fate, that is the strongest declaration of a Stoic heart. Part 9. Finding the light within. Have you ever felt drowned in darkness, even when the sun was still shining outside? That is because we often forget one thing. True light does not come from the world, but from within ourselves. I remember the story of Chris, a friend who ran a startup in San Francisco. He poured all his money, effort, and sweat into a clean energy company. The start was smooth. Everyone praised him. Newspapers wrote articles. But then a shock. His partners pulled their funding, the market crashed, and Chris lost everything after just 18 months. Chris fell into a deep pit of despair. He hid in his rented apartment, drew the curtains tight, refused every phone call. In his mind, one sentence played on repeat: I'm a failure. But then one afternoon, his old mentor came knocking, pulling Chris for a walk along the beach. They were silent for half an hour, just listening to the wind and the waves, and then the mentor asked, Chris, did you lose your heart? Chris was surprised. The mentor smiled and said, you only lost a company, but you didn't lose your heart. And if you still have your heart, you still have light. Those words felt like the first sunlight piercing through gray curtains. Chris started to think again. Yes, I still have the ability to learn. I still have passion. I still have kindness. Slowly, he reopened himself, joined nonprofit projects, helped install solar energy for underprivileged communities, and found a new sense of purpose. Stoicism reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. If the outside is dark, you can still light a lamp inside to guide yourself. Humorously speaking, even an iPhone needs to turn on its flashlight during a blackout, so people all the more need to learn how to shine their inner light. Each time you lose faith, ask yourself, what do I still have inside? Surely you still have love, willpower, experience, things no one can steal from you. And those will become the source of light to help you move forward. Chris recalled, I lost my company, but I found back the reason why I started. That light is stronger than any criticism, stronger than even failure. Remember, nothing external can extinguish your inner light unless you allow it. Stoicism teaches us, when everything falls apart, turn inward. Protect that small lamp in your heart, and then you will find a way out, even when the whole world turns its back on you. Part 10. Don't be too hard on yourself. There is a cruel critic that follows you everywhere, and that is yourself. In America, people often joke, I'm my own worst critic. And it's true, sometimes no one makes us suffer more than the harsh words that come from our own minds. I once met Emma, a graphic designer in Los Angeles. One time she missed a deadline, the client was furious and the boss scolded her. Even though the mistake wasn't too big, Emma tortured herself. I'm incompetent. I'm useless. Why do I keep failing? She repeated those words every night until she was exhausted and stressed to the point her hair fell out. Luckily, a friend gave her a book about Stoicism, and Emma came across this line from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind. Stop harming yourself. Emma woke up. She realized If a friend made the same mistake, she would forgive and encourage them. So why couldn't she do that for herself? Stoicism does not teach us to be as cold as steel, but to have compassion for ourselves. A bit of humor. Even Captain America has days he stumbles. Iron Man has made faulty suits before. So what are a few mistakes for you? No one is born perfect. And if you demand absolute perfection from yourself, you are putting on unnecessary shackles. Emma began to change her inner voice. Every time she made a mistake, she reminded herself, I did wrong, but I am learning. And this gentleness helped her recover faster, stronger, and become creative again. Stoicism teaches discipline with habits, kindness with your soul. Discipline does not mean self-torture, but means correcting, upgrading, with patience and compassion. Next time you fall down, try asking, if this were my friend, what would I say? Then say exactly that to yourself. Because you also deserve to be encouraged, to be embraced, to be forgiven, instead of being stabbed again by your own thoughts. Remember, the world out there is harsh enough. Don't become your own most ruthless enemy. Stoicism helps us become strong, but also reminds us to be kind to ourselves. That is the true lasting resilience. Part 11. Don't carry pains that haven't arrived yet. One mistake that so many people, even modern Americans, often make is borrowing suffering from the future. Before even facing it, they already make themselves miserable. I remember the story of David, a friend who is a doctor in Houston. He was extremely talented, trusted by patients, loved by colleagues. But David had a terrible habit of disaster forecasting. If a patient coughed longer than usual, he worried about being sued. If there was a rumor about layoffs, he imagined losing his house, losing his car. David lost sleep continuously, lost weight, heart racing, all because of scenarios that had never actually happened. One day, David's mentor told him, "You're paying interest on a loan you haven't even taken out." David was stunned, then thought about it. True. Everything he feared hadn't even happened, but he had let it torment him as if it were real. Stoic philosophy calls this suffering before suffering. Seneca once wrote, "He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary." Humorously speaking, life is hard enough. Why direct and star in your own tragedies in your head? Like paying insurance for a car you haven't even bought. Completely pointless. From that day on, David practiced asking himself each time he felt stressed, has this happened yet? If not, he reminded himself, let it come first, then I'll deal with it. Little by little, his sleep returned, his smile returned, and his energy for work became more sustainable. Stoicism does not encourage you to ignore danger. They teach you to prepare but not to suffer in advance. You can still have backup plans B, C, D, but you don't need to destroy your sleep imagining 100 bad scenarios. Next time, if you fear losing your punt, losing your lover, fear illness, fear failure, ask yourself, is this actually happening yet? If not, focus on today. Because the present is the only thing you truly have. Marcus Aurelius once reminded, today is enough. If tomorrow brings challenges, then when it truly arrives, you can still handle it, just like you've handled so many storms before. If the pain hasn't arrived, don't invite it in. Let your heart rest. Let your mind stay strong enough to face reality, not negative assumptions. And remember, life is already heavy enough. You don't need to carry an imagined burden on your shoulders too. Part 12. Don't replay the stories that hurt you. One of the most dangerous habits of the human mind, especially in America's highly competitive society, is to replay the same story of failure over and over again, like a record stuck in a groove. I once heard the story of Julia, a real estate agent in Boston. In a big deal, she was betrayed by a partner at the last minute, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in commission, not to mention her damaged reputation. Julia suffered for weeks, but then she kept retelling this tragedy to everyone she met, friends, family, even strangers online. Every time she told it, she stirred up the humiliation again, digging the wound before it had a chance to heal. A friend of Julia's said, "You're torturing yourself with an old story." Julia at first resisted, but then suddenly realized Yes, the event happened once, but she had replayed it dozens, hundreds of times in her mind, so the pain kept coming back endlessly. Stoicism teaches us to manage how we tell stories in our minds. Epictetus once said, "It's not the thing itself that disturbs you, but your opinion about it." A bit of humor. Our brains sometimes resemble Netflix, continuously producing tragic dramas no one wants to see, and forcing ourselves to watch them over and over again. From that day on, Julia practiced changing her internal script. Instead of repeating, "I was cheated, I lost," she tried to rewrite it. "I learned a very expensive lesson, and I will be more cautious." Whenever her mind tried to replay the old record, she reminded herself, "Stop. That's enough." Gradually, Julia still remembered what had happened, but no longer let it trample her confidence. She returned to the real estate business and succeeded even more, because this time she was stronger and wiser. Stoicism does not ask you to deny your memories, but teaches you to see them as data, not as a life sentence chaining you down. Try asking yourself, does the story I'm telling about this failure help me move forward? If the answer is no, then be brave enough to stop that painful record. You deserve peace. And peace begins when you stop replaying a story that hurts you. Remember, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain is real, but chronic suffering is something you have the choice to stop. Part 13. Complain less, practice action. There is something that exhausts people faster than any hardship, and that is endlessly complaining without doing anything. In America, they call this complain culture, where people blame everything: the weather, the boss, the traffic, the government, even the neighbor's dog. I remember the story of Kevin, a technician in Seattle. Kevin hated his current job so much that every morning he woke up feeling gloomy. For an entire year, he complained to colleagues, to his wife, to anyone. "My boss is terrible, the pay is low, the projects are boring, life is unfair." But he did nothing to change. Every evening, Kevin sat watching TV, drinking beer, and continued to complain. One day, Kevin's wife handed him a Stoic philosophy book and gently tapped his shoulder. "Why don't you read this instead of whining?" In it was a very powerful quote from Epictetus. "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." Kevin was startled. He realized he was only good at talking, but had never actually asked to transfer departments, never tried learning new skills, never seriously planned to escape that job. The very next day, Kevin started studying programming at night, joined tech community groups, updated his LinkedIn profile. 6 months later, he successfully applied to another company with a better position, a more breathable environment, and most importantly, Kevin regained his sense of self-respect. A bit of humor. Many people can complain for 3 hours straight, but are too lazy to spend 10 minutes writing a job application email. Stoicism tells us, don't waste energy on things that don't solve the problem. Next time you find yourself about to unleash a rant, pause and ask, is there something I can act on? If there is, do it. If not, accept it. Only those two paths can save you from the cycle of helplessness. Marcus Aurelius once reminded, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Complaining only temporarily lightens your burden, but action is what truly brings you freedom. And freedom, that is the deepest goal of Stoicism. Freedom from fear, freedom from helplessness, freedom from your own complaints. Part 14. Keep a reminder close by. Have you noticed, among the thousands of things you have to remember every day, deadlines, bills, birthdays, discount coupons, we often forget the most important things for our peace of mind. I have an American friend named Laura, a nurse in New York, spinning through long shifts and patients all day. Laura is a perfectionist type, always afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being judged. One day, she nearly fainted from stress when the hospital suddenly ran out of medication. Luckily, Laura's boss was also someone who had studied Stoicism. He gave her a small piece of paper that read, "Is this in my control?" Laura stuck it right on the side of the medicine cabinet, and every time her heart began to race, she glanced at that note. Strangely enough, just that simple question saved her countless times from a meltdown. When medication ran out, Laura knew she couldn't magically conjure it out of thin air, so she calmly prioritized the patients. When colleagues made mistakes, she remembered she couldn't control other people's behavior, only how to support them. Stoicism calls these reminders mental anchors, because when storms hit, the brain easily panics, and a mental anchor helps you not get swept away. A bit of humor. Americans are willing to stick sticky notes everywhere to remember deadlines or Wi-Fi passwords, but won't bother to stick a note reminding themselves to live more peacefully. So you should also choose for yourself a very short Stoic reminder. Stick it somewhere easy to see: bathroom mirror, laptop screen, or phone case. It could be focus on what you can change or let go what you can't. Every time a crisis hits, just one glance can feel like an anti-panic vaccine. Marcus Aurelius used to write dozens of such reminders in his notebook, because even an emperor had moments of fear and distraction. A simple but consistent reminder is like a red thread that pulls you back to reason, to your deepest peace. Next time you feel your heart racing from a deadline, from someone misunderstanding you, from a sudden crisis, ask, "What is my anchor today?" and hold tight to it. Because in the storm, a wise reminder can save you from drowning in chaos. Part 15. Don't live for other people's eyes. One of the biggest mental shackles, whether in America or anywhere else, is the obsession with other people's opinions. Stoicism calls it an invisible prison, and many people live their whole lives inside it without knowing. I remember the story of Brian, a designer in Los Angeles, talented and passionate. Brian loved creating unconventional products, but every time he was haunted, will the clients criticize me? Will my friends think I'm weird? That fear made him keep editing, cutting down his ideas, and the result was products so bland, no one remembered them. One day, Brian read a quote from Marcus Aurelius: "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions." Brian woke up. He decided this time to make a design true to his heart, daring to break the mold, daring to show his true self. At first, sure enough, some people criticized him. But then other clients loved it and were willing to pay even more precisely because of its honesty and uniqueness. Brian laughed. If everyone likes it, then no one will remember it. Stoicism teaches that you can do kind things, try your best, but that does not mean everyone will agree, will praise you, will recognize you. And that is completely normal. A bit of humor. Even pizza, the favorite dish of millions, still has people who hate it, let alone you. Next time, if you feel yourself starting to tremble under judgment, ask yourself, am I doing what is true to my values? If yes, then don't let the outside noise steer you off course. Because when you live chasing the crowd's approval, you have already sold off your freedom. Remember, the world does not lack nosy people, but does lack those brave enough to live truthfully. Stoicism wants you to become a lamp, even if small, still shining on your own, without waiting for anyone to flip the switch. Marcus Aurelius once said, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Sounds paradoxical, doesn't it? You deserve to live a life true to your values. And that is true freedom. Choose the light from within, not the spotlight that others switch on and off. Closing. Call to action. If you have stayed with me until this point, it means there is already a spark inside you, a part that wants to live stronger, wiser, and less manipulated by anxiety. You are not alone. Every day, there are millions of people also learning how to adjust their sails in the storms, also trying to escape the loops of fear and insecurity. And Stoicism is the small lamp that helps us see the way through the darkness, step by step. Stoicism is not a magic wand that turns you into a superhero, but it gives you the tools to stand firm when life pushes you down. If today you start practicing one small mantra, if you try to control what is in your hands and let go of what is not, then I'm sure you have already gone farther than many people. If you also choose to live like a light, drop a comment. I choose to be light. I will read all your shares, and together we will spread this peace and strength even further. And don't forget to hit subscribe, hit like, and share this video with anyone who is fighting anxiety, stress, or sleepless nights from overthinking. You never know. Just one video, just one stoic reminder could save someone from their darkest day. See you in the next videos, where we will dig deeper into a philosophy of living strong, calm, and full of love. Stay strong, stay calm, and choose to be light.